Hi, I don't think I introduced myself in my first vlog. My name's Rachel and my husband and I have had 8 children, and our youngest is my daughter Betty, who I spoke about in my first vlog. In this vlog I want to concentrate on 2 things that happened in our journey that did directly impact on the growth and development of my daughter. The first one was when we were in the hospital and my daughter was diagnosed with all of her long list of issues, that her deafness would tend to be put to the bottom of the list because she did have some quite serious medical conditions that needed immediate attention, and so the deafness had to be dealt with further down the track, which resulted in us not seeing her ENT doctor until she was about 1 year old. So when she was 1, we went in and we saw our ENT for the very first time. And as you would know, a doctor comes from a medical background and will focus on the problem that you present with. So when we presented there, he saw our daughter who was suffering with a moderate severe hearing loss, and his perspective was he was going to make our daughter hearing and speaking because we live in a hearing and speaking society. So he told us we didn't want her to feel isolated from that, which obviously we didn't. And we wanted to make her as successful as we possibly can in our hearing and speaking society. So as parents of a deaf child, and we trustingly believed our doctor, and he came from a very caring perspective, and he delivered from the best of his knowledge. You can't know what you don't know, and what we know now we didn't know then, and I would assume our doctor didn't know either. So there's no blame towards him or anything like that. We are very appreciative of all the help he was able to extend to us and to our daughter in helping her along her journey. We still see him today, and he's watched her growth and development over the many years. So with that being said, unfortunately our daughter was unable to attain speech because of several reasons. One is we found out later on she just doesn't hear certain sounds, and if you can't hear those sounds you can't reproduce them. And then the other thing was she's got a submucous cleft palate, which also impacts on her ability to produce speech. And she wasn't able to feed herself for the first 9 months because of her heart condition. She just didn't have the energy to suck. So we had to work closely with a speech pathologist back then to get her continue working with what she was able to do, and that was she could suck on a dummy. So we used the pigeon dummies. We bought 100 million teats trying to get her off the tube feed to get her into a teat that she could actually manage to suck from. We did eventually find a teat through the Cleft Palate Society called a choo-choo teat, and that was a godsend. That was fantastic because it got her off the tube and it got her feeding independently. That being said, when we did go and get assessed to see whether surgery would help improve her speech, because she did have that submucous cleft palate, the cleft palate specialists assessed her and said that they didn't feel like a surgery would improve her speech at all because she just wasn't able to form some of the facial shapes that we make to produce clear and precise sounds to deliver understandable speech. And they weren't sure with how she used her tongue and things like that. But at the end of the day, she couldn't express, she also couldn't receive, she couldn't hear us clearly all the time, which led to a lot of frustration and anxiety. She would lead to self-harming behaviours and things like that. But thankfully, before we discovered that we could learn Auslan, obviously that's where we're heading, but before that, we were working closely with Disability Services Queensland, and they would come out weekly and do speech pathology, physio and OT, and just help us keep my daughter's progress growing. And they really helped in understanding the importance of communicating with a child who has delays. With my daughter in particularly, we did the Hen and It Takes Two workshop, which I highly recommend to anybody. If you get a chance to do it, do it. It's so good. It motivates you, it helps you, and it gives you tools and strategies to work with to help your child, because with our children with the extra delays, they need as much help as they can get. Because, for example, a typical child may need a word repeated 100 times before they're able to take it and use it. Our children with the delays need it repeated at least 1,000 times. So that's 10 times more work you need to provide to your child who experiences challenges than a child who doesn't. So when they're experiencing those challenges, you need as many tools in your toolbox as you can. So the Hen and It Takes Two workshop, highly recommend it. The second thing was we were then asked to attend Makaton workshops, which I think nowadays is known as keyword sign. That was also a godsend, because back then we knew nothing about Auslan. We didn't know any deaf people. We didn't know anything really, and we were just operating on the best we could access at the time. And at the time, that was Makaton or keyword sign. And that really helped us help Betty be able to communicate some of her needs. And I say some because though keyword sign is great in helping us learn how to sign and speak at the same time to give our daughter access to as much language as we could, because our daughter could only really grasp the Makaton, it wasn't really a full language. So by the time she hit about 6 or 7, she needed more. She started to show signs of depression, and I remember one Christmas she was just in constant tears, because though Makaton had helped us up through those times, she just needed more. We tried things like PECs, the picture cards. I'd taken 1,000,001 photos of things in our community, things in our home, and you know, she used PECs like a star at school, in her special school, but when she got home she would never touch them. And we tried to use a thing called a pod book. I couldn't even navigate it. So expecting a child who's 3.5, 4 years old working out how to use a pod book was near impossible. So I think at the end of the day, in those years between being diagnosed with deafness and finally learning we could attain Auslan, the things that really saved us was A, the Hen and It Takes Two workshop, and B, learning Makaton or learning keyword sign. Those were the two things I would always attribute that helped us out a lot, that helped us on to working out where to go as the next step of our journey. So I hope those things helped you today, and I'm going to leave it at that for this vlog, and look forward to talking to you next time. Bye.